Welcome to the Treehouse Life podcast. This is the place where we take you behind the scenes of our builds, our adventures, and the stories that shaped our journey. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. We're Treehouse Life, international designers and builders of tree houses, rope bridges, and nature-led adventure structures created for families all over the world. And I'm your host, Jo.
And I'm Paul Cameron, founder, CEO, and chief Imagineer at Treehouse Life.
Fabulous. And today, Paul, we're going to talk about entrepreneurship and how you built your business. The first question I want to ask you is, actually, how did you start your business? What do you think entrepreneurship is to you?
I think the key starting point here is that I didn't start a business, I started a passion. And it's a passion that turned into a business. I didn't start at my desk writing a business plan or structuring a marketing plan. Mm-hmm. I'd learnt that. I'd studied an MBA.
I didn't know that, really?
Yeah.
Oh, fabulous. Okay.
Yeah. Back in the day when I was drumming, I was also studying. And I studied an open learning MBA. So I had an idea of the structures of business and the ingredients that needed to be in the mix.
Yeah.
And of course, all of those are super important. And I think now that I've come through 25 years of running a business, I understand that so much more. But I wouldn't have started the business if all that it was about was a business plan and a marketing plan.
But you wouldn't have started a business if all it had been about was passion and an idea, would you? So the combination of the two makes for more success than just the passion, doesn't it?
The passion drove a vision, and I became hungry for the vision. And so that takes you on a journey. And I guess you're going to ask me, what was the vision?
Yeah, go on. What was the vision?
I'm interviewing you now.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're telling me how to interview you. What was the vision, Paul?
I had this vision that I would be this sort of guru character, traveling the world, creating beautiful treehouse spaces, spaces of joy, adventure and imagination. And that's exactly what I'm doing now. So my vision has happened, is happening. It's alive and vibrant. But I didn't at any point lose sight of that vision. So everything becomes focused on that vision. And something that I think about a lot that comes from my previous career as a musician and a drummer, and that is to drive excellence or moments of excellence into everything that you do. And for me, that became the building blocks in the early days, that for every aspect that I was encountering for the first time, starting a new business is a lot of first times. First week, first project, first client, first customer, first marketing campaign, first website build, first brochure, first photographs. It's first of everything. And in many ways continues to be, because it's a living beast that needs to be managed. And what I drive into all of those first times, and what I still do to this day, is to drive in what I call moments of excellence. It's not elitist. It's just doing things in a way that's world-class, the best that we can make it. And that's not just the ending, it's the beginnings. It's every part of what we do, all the way from a site consultation that becomes a world-class experience with a potential client, right the way through to delivery of a project, not only to private clients, but to commercial clients, which can often be a more exacting business experience.
So if I'm an entrepreneur, or I'm a wannabe entrepreneur, and I follow your method, passion, vision, a marketing plan, because
Yeah.
or the understanding of a business plan and a marketing plan and how to do it, and then the delivery of world-class excellence in whatever I choose to do.
Yeah.
That's how I should start, in your opinion.
In my opinion, yeah. And, I don't want to talk about excellence as something that's flippant or easy or unachievable. I think it's very achievable. I learned that as a musician, and you can't exist as a musician if you don't perform as expected, as written. When the conductor's beat comes down or the green light goes on in a studio, no matter how you feel that day.
It's as expected, isn't it?
Yes.
I think that's quite key in the excellence bit, is that if you lay out the expectations to your client of what excellence is going to be, then you deliver that excellence, and then you are playing and performing in the way that you said you're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, there's that thing that business schools talk about, salespeople talk about, people buy from people.
Yeah.
And for me, we've held on to that. We have a really important start to the relationship with our clients. It's typically a psych consultation. And perhaps I should talk a little bit more about that, because it sits right at the foundation of what then becomes the journey with them through to that excellence. We call it wow factor when we deliver. And the important relationship there is something that I call a breakfast table relationship. And what I mean by that is that relaxed space that is typically around a breakfast table, the kids running around, cup of coffee, the table's messy. We start in that space. It's not always over breakfast, but it's that style of relationship. It's not in a showroom. It's not behind a brochure. It's not online. The client has often, perhaps always, come to us from our website. So there's the online experience, but that needs to be personalized. And that's where the passion sits. That's where the relationship sits. And for me, in the business that I know, which is the Treehouse business, it's built on the first word I use, passion. A passion for what I do, a passion for what I know I can deliver, a passion for what I commit to deliver with our clients in the sales contract. And that runs through everything that we do. And at no point are we fooling our clients. We're explaining to them the limitations of what we can achieve. And you can imagine with tree houses, there are distinct limitations.
So we go back to the managing their expectations in order for you to be able to deliver excellence at that expectation. This is what's going to happen. So I want to just take you back to the beginning again of the vision, the passion, the knowledge of a business plan. Treehouse Life found a niche. How important do you think it is to find a niche?
Yeah, it's so important. It's my go-to word in explaining what we do, that we are niche. I'm super passionate about niche, back to that passion word, but I'm passionate about niche.
And so why are you passionate about niche?
I love being niche. I love being different. I love being new. I love being unexpected. I love being perhaps a little bit disruptive. I love all of that. And I think...
But how important is that for somebody who's coming into entrepreneurship to find a niche?
I think that the two, entrepreneurship and niche, go hand in hand. Niche can, in some industries, become something that's every day. Steve Jobs understood niche when he started out with Apple computers. It was a niche product.
He didn't build very many products either, did he?
No, but he was focused on niche, and I think, read the books, and I think he held on to that, and that became very unpopular with the business structure around him. They expelled him from the business. They took him out of his own business. Eventually brought him back.
He went to Pixar, didn't he? And then he came back. Yeah.
And they realised they couldn't exist without him. They needed his passion for niche. Niche can be popular. Niche can be big business. But I think what people recognise in niche is that you are holding something unique. And the way we've dealt with it in the business is that we have a design signature. And that's evolved. The way that we create now is pretty much the same as what we started with 25 years ago. I'm not beginning to compare us to Apple as a company, but they hold on to the same design signature of what they started with. Super successful with it. So I'm very affected by that and very understanding of what they've achieved. Their products hold a character, they hold a signature, and that's instantly recognizable. Many, many years ago, I think even before I started my business, I read a book. I think it was a guy called Michael Eisner. He was the CEO of Disney.
Oh.
And I love the whole story of Walt Disney and how he started his company. We might talk about that. And in Michael Eisner's, I think it's Michael Eisner, I think in his book, he talks about how Disney became super challenged because they started to believe that their business model was growing the size of their business by opening theme parks, that they were a real estate company, that they could go around the world and they could open theme parks, and therefore they'd be more profitable and a bigger business. And they lost their way because they discovered that actually wasn't what their business was about. Their business was about a mouse called Mickey.
Yes.
And the beautiful thing that is to all children worldwide, they remembered that was the magic. That was the reason that people go to a Disney park rather than any other adventure park. The magic of Disney is the cartoon character that Walt Disney created all those years ago.
And it's hard to believe that he actually was a niche, because in my understanding of the Disney story is that when he said he wanted to open a theme park, that you didn't charge for the rides, you just charged to go in.
Charge for the experience.
Once.
Yeah.
Everybody said it wouldn't work. So he, I mean, it's now very much the way you do it in any of the big theme parks, but at the time, he was very niche. And he had to persuade, didn't he have to persuade his investors or his
he did.
shareholders that he was going to... Yeah.
It's one of my biggest wishes that I could have been a fly on the wall in exactly that meeting. Can you imagine being Walt Disney and turning up to a meeting with your bank manager to
this is what I'm going to do.
I'm going to have a, I've created these cartoon characters and I'm now want your investment, but I'm going to have a theme park based on those cars. I mean, what a ridiculous conversation for anybody to believe in, because they just didn't exist back then.
No.
So that conversation, but he must have delivered that with passion.
Yeah.
And all these years later, Disney have had to remember that it's that original passion that Walt had for those characters that is the magic ingredient. It's the niche. That's the thing that other adventure parks don't have, and that creates the magic. I mean, can you imagine? I don't know how many theme parks they have, 5 or 6 worldwide, and that special experience for every single child every day who goes to a Disney park. How wrong would it be if they turned a corner and they see 2 Mickey Mouses?
Yeah, that would be awful.
It can't happen.
No, it can't happen. No.
They have to, every single day of every single year in all the theme parks, every child needs to see Mickey Mouse once.
Yes, and they have a rotation. They have a rota, don't they, on when Mickey Mouse appears at each particular theme park, which I think is brilliant.
It's incredible, and all those children come home and I've seen Mickey Mouse, and that's the magic.
And and Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty,
okay,
and all
of course.
Niche is important as well as passion. But then, so what are the practical steps, do you think, or for your experience, what were the practical steps of turning your passion and your niche into an actual business? How did you go about doing that? Yeah,
it's fascinating. I mean, I touched on the niche becoming a design signature. We've held on to that. So it's keeping to that design signature, but then sitting behind that, the process to achieve that.
Yeah, which is important.
It's so important, Joe. So important. When we design a treehouse, what we're also designing is the process to make that happen. And that then steps into the world of business, because process gives you scalability. Is that a word?
Yeah, scalability. Let's use it.
Yeah.
But so did you build the processes right from the very beginning, right from day one?
Yeah. And we've honed it. It's taken many, many years, and it's evolving. We've got it into a really smart space now. But it takes many years and many versions of what you're doing to turn it into a process. And what I mean by process is not something in a factory, but the ability, because ultimately you have to do things at budget. That's the business lesson. It can't just be an open checkbook. You have to sell, and people need to see value in what, we can have the fuzzy conversation about wish list and wow factor, but a client is paying for that. Yeah. So they need to see value in what you're delivering. They need to see uniqueness, something that they can't get from any other company. As a business, we need to be all over that in terms of process. And that's why we can succeed as a business, because we can achieve the journey from wish list to wow factor. We can achieve success in those projects because we have a process sitting behind that. We understand every cut in the timber, every shape, every screw fixing point. A treehouse can typically be 3,000-4,000 pieces or items that need to fit together in a particular way to deliver the wow factor.
And in the first episode that we recorded, you said that months 0 to 12, you didn't do anything in terms of sales. So from months 0 to 12, did you then design your process on how you would do it when you got back to when you went to the Ideal Home exhibition at the back of the hall? Did you then decide that, okay, so when we do build tree houses, this is how we're going to do it? This would be your process. And then when you got to the Ideal Home exhibition and you got 22 orders, you had a process or did you literally throw yourself out of the plane and build your parachute on the way down?
Yeah, I mean, yes. Frightening. I mean, that Ideal Home show 2, 12 months in.
Yeah.
we felt successful, and I'm putting that into inverted commas. And the business nearly fell apart at that show.
Why?
Because we in the framework that we'd set ourselves, we had clients and enough clients to create a pot of funds that enabled us to then exhibit on a 60 square metre stand at in that beginning of the second year. At that time, on the stand, we had a sales director, and we had a shareholder in the company who was the carpenter. And what I discovered at that show was that the sales director and the co-shareholder had set up a competing company.
Really?
And were selling from the stand into their own competing company. So I learnt a really obvious and important and key business lesson. Business book, chapter 1, there it is, right at the 12-month point. Learnt about how you structure your company, how you hold on to the vision, and the niche. The sales director and the technical chief of the company had believed that they could create and take forwards the vision. And they set up a competing company. That company failed.
But at the time, it must have been quite devastating for you to believe the betrayal.
Yeah.
And then, did they take clients from you as well?
Yeah. A lot of business that we sold at that show went into their competing business. We were straight to the lawyers. We separated out, turned it into two companies. They took one company forwards. I took the other company forwards. What I held on to, and this is the key lesson for me now all these years later, what I held was the vision and the passion. And my business is still alive today, 25 years later. Their business
Isn't.
It failed because they had sales expertise, they had technical build expertise. So they had what you would naturally think are the two big ingredients of business, but what they didn't have was the vision and the passion. So
how did you pick yourself up, dust yourself down and start all over again at that point?
Made me stronger.
Did it?
Yeah, made me, I learnt resilience.
And what does that look like? What does resilience look like to you in that moment? Yeah,
just commitment to passion. I know I'm using that word a lot, but it's so key, so fundamental. And I held on to that. I knew where I wanted to get to. I knew the direction. I knew the journey. And I took that journey forwards, held true to the passion, held true to the beliefs and the vision. And I set about doubling our sales value each year over the next 5 years. So we had, 25 years ago, we had an average sale value of £8,500. And 3 years later, we had an average sales value of £25,000.
Well done.
So it was the same vision, the same passion. But I set about understanding my clients more closely. I learnt that we were actually in front of perhaps the wrong clients at the Ideal Home Show. I realized that we needed to set our vision on high net worth, ultra high net worth clients.
So we were talking about
Yeah.
how at that moment you pivoted and how you said you maintained the passion.
Yes.
And you maintained the vision and learnt lessons and restructured. So you came back to it stronger because you managed to keep that rather than lose that. So it's basically about, we're all going to learn lessons as we go along as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
It's how you handle them as well. It's how you dust yourself down, pick yourself up.
I think that's so crucial. That comes right the way back to your earlier questions about entrepreneurship and what is it. And I think the world of business taught me the meaning of an important word, resilience. And that came to me as a lesson.
Yeah.
And fortunately, that came to me as a lesson early on.
Yeah.
And it came to me early on, so I was able to be light on my feet.
Because entrepreneurship is not for everybody.
No.
It's not for everybody because and that isn't a criticism on people that take the 9-to-5 job, because actually you think as a 9-to-5er and you're getting a monthly salary, is that you think, oh, well, you know, you're working for the man. But actually, when you are an entrepreneur and you are the CEO, you are working for a lot more people. Yeah. You are maintaining your business. Yeah. You are working for your clients. And it's a completely different ball game. So how did you, right at the very beginning, manage, or did you manage were you still drumming? How did you manage to pivot out? Yeah. At what point did you think, well, I can no longer drum? Yeah. And but I've got, what's the risk of giving that up? And am I going to earn money from this?
Yeah, it's a shift from one career to the other, and two very different careers and workspaces. You're absolutely right. Yeah, there was a period when I was sort of running both halves of my life. I was, at the time, that year, I was working at the Royal Opera House. So I was playing in the orchestra at the Royal Opera House, ballet, opera.
Fabulous.
Tail suit.
Nice.
Miles away from
were you the man at the back
shorts
going,
and a
bong,
t-shirt.
bong, bong, bong? Oh, sorry. Were you that person?
I never bong-bonged.
Sorry.
I was playing music.
Sorry.
Puccini.
Of course, not bonging.
No, never a bong.
But you were the man at the back.
Yes. Yes, fabulous. But with a bigger sound.
Yeah,
you know?
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So you were at the Royal Opera House.
Yes.
Doing that and building a company.
Yeah, tail suit at night, shorts and a t-shirt during the day.
Yeah.
And, you know, finding my way, of course. Yeah. Learning about risk, But listen, there's nothing more risky than being the cymbal player in a Mahler symphony.
No, because if you get that wrong...
If you're a beat early, everyone knows about it.
If you're a beat late, they know about it.
Well, yes. Yeah. You know, you can't not do it. Yeah. When the moment comes, you have to stand up and play the cymbals, and, you know, the audience know it and feel it and hear it and react to it. So, you know, I think musicians arguably are the biggest risk takers. Always on a daily, nightly, performance by performance basis, huge risk. You think of what Mick Jagger does at the front of the stage. Yeah. You know, at any given moment, it can just fall flat. So, in so many ways, musicians are incredible entrepreneurs in terms of being risk takers, in terms of being resilient.
Yeah.
So it's one of those scenarios where I think. I didn't know it at the time, but through being a musician, I had instinctively learnt many of those skills. And they'd never been taught as a business context. Yeah. But so much of what I've learned and discovered and been through as a businessman since, I've held together because of the years I had as a professional musician.
So when did you make the move from musician, that's the end of my career as a musician, into I am now only the CEO and visionary of Treehouse Life.
Yeah, I loved every single minute of being a musician. So none of that decision was to step away from that profession, but I just became super excited about what the Treehouse business could become.
Right.
It wasn't successful at that time, so it wasn't that, it was earning me, too much money that I could resist it. It was super challenging and super formative. There was lots of work that I needed to do, but I was excited by that. And it became a sort of natural choice. One never knows, was it a sensible choice? I don't.
Well, looking back,
but it's just a choice. I was 40 at the time, thereabouts. I'd had 20 odd years as a musician successfully. And there was this whole new world that I was beginning to create. And I could see the journey. And my vision and my passion was 10 years in the future. It wasn't next week. Yeah. And so that gave me a sense of scope, a sense of journey, a sense of purpose.
But didn't give you any more certainty, did it?
No.
Than your, weekly, I'm going to be at the Royal Opera House, or maybe I'm not, type thing. Yeah. Didn't give you any more certainty. So there's a certain amount of risk involved. Risk. So how did you manage that risk?
Just pushing through it. That has to be the story of every entrepreneur. There's always a point where you push through, you push through barriers, you push through doors. It's hard, it's tough.
Did you make any financial mistakes?
Yeah, lots. And still do.
You would. Yeah. I still do.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's encouraging or not.
Learn,
So what did you learn from making financial mistakes at the beginning?
Learn how to deal with it.
Mm-hmm. Do you mean emotionally or financially or with the bank?
I think all of that. I think probably a skill set that entrepreneurs have is an ability to see through problems, problem solving.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurship is a whole big dose of daily problem solving. And it still is to this day.
And can be quite a lonely process, can't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Definitely. So, listen, we're putting people off being entrepreneurs.
Not at all.
We're making it sound like a sort of dark space.
I don't think you have. I think you've gone. I think you said, actually, this is my passion, and you're really enjoying it. Yeah. And there was a moment when you left. You knew it was right, even though the risks were there. I think it would be silly of us to say, actually, it's lovely. Leave your job and do your niche, because actually there is a whole learning process in it. And I think it's important that when you go into that, you understand there are so many benefits to it as well, because as you and I both know, there are times when you can take time off, you can pitch up to work at 11 o'clock if that's what you want to do, because you've got to go, as a father, you've got to go and see your kids in the nativity play. So there's loads of things you can do as an entrepreneur. It's not like, but it's the whole, it's not necessarily going to be easy at the beginning. And if you manage those steps well, then, success is yours. I mean, because how much are you enjoying your life now?
I love it. I love every day. I mean, listen, I get to wake up every morning with a passion.
And play. You get to wake up and play.
Yeah. And I get to see wow factor. I get to see happiness. I get to see the child who sees Mickey Mouse for the first time.
You absolutely do.
And listen, I've been to Missouri. I've sat under the same tree that Walt Disney sat under as a child. He used to go to a particular tree that's still there,
wow,
and dream. He used to call it his dreaming tree. Mm-hmm. And I often think about that. Walt Disney as a child knew he had his vision, he had his passion. And he was never particularly rich and he's become famous.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was hugely challenging. Can you imagine that journey? In a similar way that Steve Jobs had the same challenge. But what's in common is that they get to wake up each morning with that passion.
Yeah.
And work hard through every day to achieve that passion. I wake up every morning passionate about niche. I love niche. I love the scarcity of what we do. I love that we're not a factory-built product.
Yeah.
That may be something that Treehouse Life does at some point in the future. Somebody might take our design signature and be able to but it won't be me that's running the factory, you know? It's me that holds every day the relationship that we have with our clients. And that's the joy. I knew that was my vision. I'm doing now what I envisioned. And I think that's a key ingredient, to know and understand what your vision is. It's not just a crazy dream. I think a vision is something very real. It's not just a fanciful dream.
No.
I think everybody has fanciful dreams. I think entrepreneurs have a vision, and a vision has structure and purpose. And I think that's probably the key to it, is that an entrepreneur gets to understand what their vision is and can see and understand who they need to bring into their team, how they need to go about making that vision come alive every day, not just at the end of 10 years or at the end of 25 years, but every day I make my vision come alive. And that's the joy. That's the delivery of the passion and the hope and the wish. I think you can see that and hear that
Definitely
in how I go about creating and recreating the business that I founded and the business that I own and the business that I wish to hand to my two boys.
I think we're going to leave it there. I think that's amazing. Thank you so much for listening. And please don't forget to like and follow us on Apple, Spotify and YouTube. And we'll be back next time.